Hey folks. So today we're going to do our last installment of continuity editing. We're finally going to talk about Mad Max Fury Road, and we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to talk about the film with respect to more kind of theoretical film studies debates about contemporary Hollywood editing. So I asked you to consume two different works that were talking about the same subject, which was what has happened to Hollywood editing in the last, say, 20, 30 years. With a kind of attention to rapid editing that we associate with action films. So we have David Bordwell, who is the author, co-author of our textbook, who wrote an essay called Intensified Continuity, in which he says, far from rejecting traditional continuity in the name of fragmentation and incoherence, the new style, that is intensified continuity, amounts to an intensification of established techniques. What is he saying there? He's saying, hey, look, a lot of people have said that contemporary editing has completely obliterated the classical model's attention to spatiotemporal comprehension. However, I'm saying that it's not actually that. It's merely an intensification of the established techniques. On the other hand, we have Matthias Stork, who has a video essay called Chaos Cinema, in which he argues something quite different. He says chaos cinema consists of a barrage of high-voltage scenes. Directors who work in this mode aren't interested in spatial clarity. It doesn't matter where you are, and it barely matters if you know what's happening on screen. The kind of main question for today is, does Mad Max Fury Road fall into chaos cinema? Does it fall into intensified continuity, or is it something that is beyond both of them? How do we use these debates to help our understanding of the frenetic pace of Mad Max Fury Road? So let's get into David Bordwell's argument. He thinks intensified continuity, which once again is a broad-scale shift away from the continuity model known for the 30s to 50s Hollywood cinema, is marked by four major formal components. Number one is more rapid editing. Number two is bipolar extremes of lens lengths. Number three is more close framings and dialogue scenes. And number four is a free-ranging camera. Lots of florid camera movement. And I think he's more or less correct if you think about the way cinema has changed after, say, the 1960s in American filmmaking. You can see these four things quite prominently if you, say, take a broad swath of American cinema. Let's focus, though, on editing, since that is the topic of our week, and I think it is the thing that is most on display in the film Mad Max Fury Road. What's a good example to show what Bordwell is talking about? Well, in a way, it's almost better to show what Bordwell is talking about not by looking at frenetically paced action cinema, but by looking at ordinary Hollywood cinema. Just to show you, even when you're not depicting a frenetic piece of content, you still actually get comparatively frenetically paced editing. So I'm going to show you two versions of the same scene. The film that you may have heard of called You've Got Mail by Nora Ephron from 1998. It's a rom-com from the 90s. It is a remake of Ernst Lubitsch's film from 1940 called The Shop Around the Corner. It's a kind of tale of two lovers who correspond. In one case, they correspond with snail mail. In the other case, they correspond with email. And there's this one scene that's almost exactly the same in both films. The scene involves the protagonist who is going to meet his love interest, the one he's corresponding to for the first time. I'm going to play you a little bit of the Ernst Lubitsch, and then we're going to watch the Ephron and pay attention to the difference in editing.
Why don't you go in, Curry? I really think you should go in and keep your date.
Now, Pirovich, just do me a favor and deliver my note.
All right.
Now, Pirovich, I don't want to know what she looks like. If she's bad looking, I've had enough bad news for today, and if she's lovely, it'll just make it more difficult, so don't tell me.
No, I won't. Now, what's the name of that book?
Anna Karenina by Tolstoy.
Anna Karenina.
Anna Karenina. And a red carnation is a bookmark.
Red carnation. Let me see, just a minute.
So I'm going to let this run silently. You can already see the setup of the scene. Jimmy Stewart is the protagonist. He wants his friend to look into the cafe to see if he can spot the woman that he's been writing to. He's excited to find out if she's attractive. Now, we'll watch the same scene in You've Got Mail.
All right. See what I see? You see her? Nah. Oh, wait. Yeah. I see a very beautiful girl. Oh, she's fine. She's fine. Ooh.
I knew it.
She's gorgeous.
I knew she would be. I knew it.
But no book. All right. Okay, wait. Wait a minute. All right, look, there's a book with the flowers, so this gotta be her.
And what does she look like?
Can't see her. Waiter's blocking.
Damn it.
Oh, hold on. He's moving.
Yeah? Can you see her?
Yeah.
And?
She's very pretty.
She is! I knew she would be! She had to be! She had to be!
You know what? She almost has the same coloring as that Kathleen Kelly person.
Kathleen Kelly of the little bookstore.
Well, why not? You said you thought she was attractive.
Absolutely, yes. Why not? Who cares about Kathleen Kelly?
Well, if you don't like Kathleen Kelly, I can tell you right now, you ain't gonna like this girl.
Why not?
Because it is Kathleen Kelly.
Now, I just want to, and I know it's difficult to watch both at the same time, but I wanted to maximize the time that we have here. You probably would have noticed, just by glancing back and forth, that the Lubitsch film only contains one shot. Which is important because it contains two spaces. Remember we talked about off-screen space. This is utilizing our imagination in some sense, right? We have depictions of one person describing what he's seeing, but we never get a shot even gesturing at what he's looking at. We do, however, get shots from the inside of the cafe right here. Right? And you can also just think about how this is organized, right? You start with this nice establishing shot, or in fact, I don't even have an establishing shot for you, and you only get singles here. But notice that they're completely separated in space. Every time you get a line of dialogue, you cut in for close-ups. There is tons of cutting here, whereas the same exact content was done in one single shot. This is what Bordwell means by intensified continuity. Now, what is chaos cinema by Matthias Stork's definition? Now, he's trying to say that there are large-scale trends, like Bordwell is saying, but he's trying to make a broader, bigger argument. He's trying to say that chaos cinema is marked by excessive editing, not just more, but excessive. Shaky camera, which result in a loss of spatial coherence. And he says the specific contours of the action movement, as well as the layout of the action space, are secondary to the visceral impact their interplay engenders. In other words, when we watch action sequences in films that fit the bill for chaos cinema, we don't actually know what's happening, but we do feel, say, the affective intensity of what is happening. Taken 3 from 2014 has a wonderful example of this.
I didn't do this.
Shit! Moving in!
Now, I want to just let you know, if you're not familiar, Taken 3, especially this scene in particular, has become a bit of a meme. Even folks who are not, say, those who are involved in film production or those who study film have gravitated to this sequence for its ostensibly bad editing. And by bad, I do mean excessive. Something seems a little off about the editing here, but I want to at least be precise about what people mean by that. And so I'm going to take this sequence in which Liam Neeson jumps a fence as an example. Now, in many ways, it's a lot of editing, but merely a lot of cuts doesn't mean that it is chaotic. I think there is a moment in this sequence when the chaos becomes absolutely apparent. And I think that moment is when we break the 180-degree rule. Remember how important the 180-degree rule is to maintaining a sense of spatial coherence. Now, interestingly, our first three shots, though they are excessive, maintain that rule. Liam Neeson is facing screen left. What's very strange, though, is this particular cut, right, in which we get a shot from the other side. Now, we don't just get a shot from behind the fence, we get a shot to make Liam Neeson face screen right, and then we go right back to the left side. That I cannot fathom the reasons for, other than to create some kind of chaotic sensibility. So I'm just going to show you that once again, what that looks like, right? Things, for the most part, seem good. He's looking left, and then boom, you get a shot coming from the other side. And I just kind of played with the editing here and took those shots out, and I think it looks pretty good. In other words, you don't lose any information by taking those shots out. They seem there to merely create a sense of frenetic pace. Now, that's an example of chaos cinema. Is Mad Max Fury Road chaos cinema? In other words, it's clearly frenetic. We've talked about in the opening, or in my screening notes, how many cuts it has. It is in the camp of having some of the most cuts in action cinema in the last 15 years. However, that doesn't mean it's not spatially continuous or spatially comprehensible. So I want to watch this sequence to kind of point out the ways in which we can, in fact, follow its spatial comprehension. So I hope you noticed this little moment. Every time you get a kind of piece of dialogue that actually reinforces our spatial orientation, you should take note. Charlize Theron's character says, "Eyes right." As she does so, she herself is looking screen right. The camera then immediately follows her gaze, right? Doesn't cut. It whips to the right to show us the field of view that she herself remarked upon. Though it's a shaky camera, we can in fact see other cars in the distance. Then we get another cut showing the people on her automobile themselves looking in that direction. They're not looking screen right, they're looking screen left, but we know that because they're on the car, they are facing us, therefore they are looking to their right, right? That's not unclear at all. Once again, dialogue reinforces, once again, Buzzard's right, pointing in that direction. Now she's looking screen left. We've gotten a new piece of information. We can clearly see through her left window that there are buzzards, as they're calling them, from the other direction.
Should we turn around and run them into our backup? No!
Once again, the eyeline match, right? The fact that she looks, we see that she's looking somewhere, and then we cut to the thing that she's looking at. Those are the buzzards on the right, once again. I want to fast forward to the latter part of this sequence just to show you beyond the ways in which spatial comprehension is reiterated through dialogue, through pointing, through eyeline matches, and so forth, that there are other ways in which the film is allowing you to gather your bearings spatially. want you to take note of this moment as a brief suspension of action. This film has a kind of micro pattern of having strong bursts of action followed by brief cessations of action so that we can kind of take a breath. Even though the film seems breathless, right? It seems as if there is no room to breathe. If you do pay attention formally to what's going on, it has these moments like this. Right? That we had to kind of briefly wade through the dust and debris and have yet another car reveal itself by kind of smashing into the scene, announcing itself as a new foe. Right? And then Charlize's character does two things. She looks behind to kind of confirm that there's a new foe, and then she looks in the rear view mirror. And here's that thing again, right? We just had a new foe enter the large truck, and it was clear to us that it was a new foe, right? And now what we have is another suspension, this time punctuated by an extreme long shot that allows us to see the wide view of the war boys following Furiosa and her gang. So what we saw here were two examples of the way in which the film, despite being frenetically paced, also is spatial comprehensible and giving us loads of kind of micro narratives in its action sequences. What I want to pose a question, is this film exciting because it's comprehensible, like this sequence from the Matthias Stork video essay?
In contrast to Bass and Forster's haphazard execution of action, consider the meticulously staged and photographed car chase in Ronin. In contemporary action cinema, such a particular sequence is unfortunately hard to find.
So at the end of his video essay, Stork offers this example as a counter to all the chaos cinema that he has given examples of. And the reason I want to show it to you is because it is clearly spatially comprehensible. However, in terms of its editing speed and even the amount of information that's happening, it's a lot slower. And a lot more, say, conservative than Mad Max in terms of its formal qualities and in terms of its editing pace. Now, what I want to suggest is that Mad Max is not a replication of this. Rather, that Mad Max uses particular techniques to allow it to have its cake and eat it too. In other words, it's allowed to be frenetically paced to an extreme degree, and it's also providing means to follow the action. And one technique that allows us to do that is centered framing. I want us to look at this little, very brief video essay that demonstrates its centered framing while giving us a voiceover from the director of photography for the film, John Seal.
Whatever was the center point of that shot had to be in the center of the frame. In the faster cutting that he's got, your eye won't have to shift on an anamorphic frame, won't have to shift to find the next subject when you've only got 1.8 seconds of time to do that. That theory of not having to move your eyes and being able to fast cut and it just goes bang, 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 takes you into it. And that is basically the whole of the film. All we would hear all the time on the comms was George saying, put the crosshairs on her nose, put the crosshairs on her nose. You put the crosshairs on Charlize's nose. You didn't offset to grab any information in the background. Camera had to be in the centre. He's very disciplined that way. Everything is symmetrical.
So I hope it's clear, based on this very simple demonstration, right, that when you take a principle like centering objects in the frame, you're allowing yourself to more quickly edit so that the eyes don't have to dart around and thereby get confused about what's going on. So one thing that I want to say that the film is able to do with this centered framing and this frenetic pacing is it yields new kinds of editing aesthetics. One thing you'll notice is this kind of cause and effect based editing, where we get these short punctuated shots where one thing causes the next thing, causes the next thing, causes the next thing. So you get that here, right? Each cut is almost like a beat. You can see that here as well. Notice just how staccato each shot is with respect to all of the different actions, the micro actions that take place that lead to the death of Immortan Joe here, or here, right? That we see, say, the launching of an object. We follow its trajectory. This thing leads to another thing. That thing leads to another thing. This is the kind of aesthetic that takes advantage of quick-paced editing and centered framing. You also get sensationalist innovations with editing, like jump cuts that accelerate the action. You can see that here in just a moment with that kind of cut. You'll see that throughout. You can see edits that stretch the action. This cut right here, that stretches out the action a little bit longer, right? You can also see impact frames, which are more or less borrowed from animation. You might have missed it, but at the moment in which Nux strikes his friend, you actually get a kind of whitened frame, very similar to what you'll get in animation, where they're more so used to changing one frame within the middle of a smooth, continuous motion. And you'll get ramping, in which right in the middle of a scene, you'll make the motion faster. And you can see that to various effects in the opening sequence of the film, basically taking out frames in order to make things seem faster. So I want to say that all of these techniques are making the film not just quickly edited, but frenetically paced in a more holistically aesthetic way. It is a fast film, and that is not merely an easy thing to accomplish on such a kind of organic level. Okay, so that's it for editing. We'll see you next time for non-continuity editing.